Government is now, it turns out, funding a pro-migration advocacy group called the Paul Hamlin Foundation, the PHF, a left-wing charity, was in receipt of £1.36 million of government grants since 2020. And what we know about these kinds of groups is that, while they may not be actively sort of cooperating with people to bring them to this country, what they do is give them an awful lot of advice about how to stay here.
Absolutely, and I think that particular story, for me, it doesn't come as much of a surprise to me, Mike, if truth be told, because in the past there have been cases of prevent funding, state funding, which is designed for anti-terrorism and anti-extremism purposes, being allocated to groups which have expressed extremist views and extremely divisive narratives. We also have a government which, talks a big game when it comes to women's rights and radical transgenderism. But in recent times, the state has provided funding for groups and organisations which support radical transgenderism and exceptionally liberal forms of gender self-identification. So it's quite remarkable that, in a way, the state funding is being allocated to groups which are working against the government's agenda.
Right. Yeah,
which is quite sensational.
Well, it really is. And, what's the government's kind of excuse for doing this? Where in the government's kind of mandate that they got from the people of this country does it say that you should be funding, basically, organisations which call, by the way, the idea of closed borders a kind of far-right dream, and they're kind of quite critical of the systemically racist systems that apparently run UK borders? What the hell are we doing giving these people money?
It's absolutely remarkable. I find it amazing that the UK's borders could be described as systemically racist.
Right. Well, if they were, I don't think they'd be quite so porous as they are.
Well, absolutely, and I'd also make the point that much of the new arrivals to the UK originating from countries such as India, Pakistan, and Nigeria. And that's a very odd border system to have if it's systemically racist. That you wouldn't have that kind of outcome. The reality is that there's a great deal of support for reducing immigration across the country. And, Mike, that cuts across a variety of ethnic and religious communities that live in the country. I'd give one example, polling that was recently done by Unheard and conducted by Focal Data. It found that the majority of voters in constituencies such as Leicester East, and even my one of Luton North, believe that immigration is too high. These are parts of the country which have incredibly high ethnic minority populations. So I think that this argument that reducing immigration or managing it in a more regimented way is in some way racist or bigoted.
Right.
That's simply not true at all.
Well, surely we have to get away from that conversation now, because the sheer numbers of people coming here would suggest that, this country cannot possibly be seen as racist around the world, because if it was, why would all these people be coming here?
No, absolutely. I'd also make the point with the net migration figures, Mike, that they are somewhat driven by humanitarian factors. That would include Ukrainian citizens who are fleeing the Kremlin's war machine, Hong Kongers who are escaping from Chinese state tyranny. So we have to really get away from this argument that Britain is an ungenerous, not particularly compassionate place. It is. But saying that, if you want to integrate people properly and you want to sustain social cohesion, then it is important to have a controlled immigration system with integration at the heart of it.